phoned in because they had her as a character and people were disappointed by Ghost. She was just basically another Kerrigan, reskinned with blonde hair. Which you think would be cool, and maybe it would have been if StarCraft 2's dialogue and general writing wasn't a little bit questionable. Plenty tabletop games? Yeah, a lot. Although not recently, because quarantine. Brand new best of 3 to the other semifinal. The winner of this faces Scarlet in a best of 5 finals. In the top left, representing Chivo, it is Ragnarok. In the bottom right is the pink Protoss for Team Rye. It is Zest. Raise Your Edge, which not only is a very legitimate team and a poker site that teaches you how to play poker, but also pretty cool social media. They've made tweets and graphics like for all those EPTs that Zest has won and his performance at IM Katowice, and it's really actually quite heartwarming when any team does that. And while it should be a given for like big legitimate teams to do that for their players, it sometimes really isn't. And unfortunately, it sometimes really isn't because it's StarCraft and they're like passion pickups. So like no one tells their graphic designer to do anything, I guess. Like I don't know what happens there, but so I'm a big fan of that team. Chivo's also cool. Chivo's very much a passion team, but had some pretty fortunate pickups, right? They picked up Sue, and then he won IM Katowice. that's pretty fortunate. And then Ragnarok got picked up by Psystorm, and then had a brief, burst of performance, and then kind of leveled off again. But then get picked up by Chivo, and has been kind of on the on people's minds at the very least. And you're just like, oh yeah, Ragnarok, yeah, absolutely. Like he could definitely take this series. He could definitely take this tournament. Maybe not the first guy you think of, but definitely there. It's a cat born without a tail. He has a tail, it's just very short. He's a Japanese bobtail.
Game resumed.
Marv vs. Inno next. God, I wish. But no. So Ragnarok, we saw a bit of his play versus Estrella. And make no mistake, that wasn't just, the Korean guy show, styling on the North American kid, like maybe it's happened in the past. No. Estrella's actually super legit on the Korean ladder. I think a lot of Koreans really respect him and practice him and all that good stuff. But no, he just actually plays like that. Ragnarok is, by nature, aggressive Zerg. He has very good macro when he uses it. So he's not just a one-trick pony. But he is an aggressive Zerg. And Zest should know that. In the past, Zest's PvZ has been his questionable matchup. In the past, like, he's actually been a pro for so long, right? His PvP always top-notch. For some reason, despite it being the matchup most in flux a lot of the time, he's fine with it. PvZ has been sometimes atrocious. I remember like 4 years ago, I think it was, casting Zest after not seeing him for a while and being like, oh, is he still playing? Like, there was actually a question at one point about Zest. And then watching a PvZ he played, and it was actually just bad. It was like watching someone who had played Wings of Liberty trying to get back into, Legacy of the Void, and you're like, what? But that was a long time ago. And then sometimes his PvT also was his worst, but I think after his performance at Katowice, his consistent performance online, those things combined, now that one was a fluke, everything he does is good. Zest is best. Second best, maybe sometimes, but best, okay? So I think his PvZ is really recovered. I think he's found his style as well. Hello, Resident lives. It's been the talk of the town. Something that he made basically his trademark for Katowice. I'm not surprised to see that. And I'm also not surprised to see Ragnarok going for a 3-hatch, totally hatchery-based all-in here. Rogue was able to just kind of nip all these builds from Zest in the bud, sometimes almost accidentally. I advise you guys to check out Pig's analysis about those finals, but it did do very well against Zest. And Zest is missing all the ingredients that he needs to actually combat such an all-in with what he has. This isn't something that he's going to just beat because he has units that like coincidentally beat this. He needed to have some type of defenses earlier on, but his Warp Prism didn't even scout this when it moved out like it did. And now his pylon is depowered. And this is just... Oh, Ragnarok's gonna win. Easy. Spent almost all this game talking about the players. Oh, maybe I called this too soon. Maybe I called this too soon. Repowering the gateways. Nope, dodging out the Corrosive Bile. Repowering the gateways. The Depth's still alive, actually. 19 probes went down. Are you serious? But they actually didn't win the game? Oh my god, I called this way too soon. Oh, there's so many units from Ragnarok on top of this. But he has to plug the hole. Plug it up. Plug it up. Okay. He's got 2 gateways, 3 gateways warping in. He's back to mining in his natural base. It's 2 bases versus 3. All things considered, this can go into a normal game. What? Are you kidding me? He literally got on top of the only pylon powering 3 gateways with the Warp Prism emergency recalling and still was unable to actually take Zest down. I mean, his probe pool, I guess, was just that good. His probe pool actually protected the Adepts, which got a concave behind their very flimsy but still there fodder, and we were able to clean everything up. Okay. Didn't see that coming. Dark Shrine's on the way for Zest. He does have, I think, more options for harassment here, but then adding on a Dark Shrine, obviously going to kind of complete his options for harassment. Ragnarok needs to add on that layer, needs to get that drone count up. He will be able to get his drone count up faster than Zest, theoretically, but he has to take into consideration that Warp Prism harassment, so he can't just press the drone button. And that's exactly what Zest wants from this pressure. You cannot press the drone button. In this situation, I'm actually wondering if Ragnarok's not pressing the drone button because he's going to all-in again, but this seems like a really early time to start making roaches. Okay, no, he was just worried about an attack. He was just worried about an attack, but... Ooh, that's unfortunate, because it wasn't an attack. It was just harassment. Could have had these drones out a little bit quicker and then made units, but... oh well. If you can grab these Adepts, that'd be pretty good. They do have Resonating Glaives. They are juggleable. Is that a word? Totally. And Zest is doing a lot. Just a few units here, and behind this getting his own saturation up and running. The cat wants so much attention. Overseer is going to come in to see exactly what's going on. It's a little late to the Dark Shrine, but the Dark Shrine was not used for DTs. It was used for Archons, so no worries there. This will be a potential option for the future if this game were to, in some weird universe, go into 20 minutes. After that early attack. Oh, man. Third base is on the way for Zest, as this does kind of head into a normal game. Just a regular Archon drop. Nothing to see here, right? But this Archon drop is more than just the Archon drop. It is actually setting up for potential Adept run-by, shade-by, we'll call it, to the left side. And if the Archons ever go maybe to the main, it would be a very, very dangerous thing for them to do. But they could. The Adepts... on the right side, could go into this right side base. Oh, he's gonna do it. Oh, that's so dangerous. Because this is not... I don't think Nightshade is... Well... Nightshade doesn't have any easy pathway out of this if there are queens tagging this Warp Prism. So, very dangerous thing for Zest to do with a weak Warp Prism. My god. But I guess there is that little option of recalling. Oh, he was a little bit close to the edge there. Adepts do come in on the left side, not on the right side though. Looks like they kind of moved forward and then maybe got misclicked, or maybe you realized the roaches were still there. They will still end up waiting. 2 Adepts live, 4 drones die. Third base is completing, and Ragnarok is starting to hold down that R button. R. It's a pirate button. R. Now all I need is roach speed. Ragnarok's like, I don't need no +1. I don't need no Vaneland Nest. Just need roaches. Zest should be able to see this with something or another, right? He's got a Depth moving in, he's got a Warp Prism floating around, and now he even has 2 Hallucinated Phoenix, and they see an awfully concerning lack of army back at home. And now the Warp Prism will see the actual army. So he's going to turn around, go home. He's got a shield battery pylon, which is very, very nice. 1 shield battery already done. And he's got some time-buying force fields. There are a couple of corrosive bios, but not a whole lot. His warp prism is very injured, but nothing here will actually shoot it. Except the corrosive bio, but only if it's stationary. It's going to be okay. Force fields off to the left side. Oh, an Archon kind of trapped over the right side is going to be barely saved. A couple more force fields on the right side as the sentries start to go down. Ling's actually not... They're not going to be very useful attacking into those gateways like that. They're wasting time. They should be trying to help get us around on some of these units. Ooh, that was actually not blocked off. The Lynx would have maybe gone into the natural instead of trying to do it. But oh, there's the surround I was talking about. The juggling of the warp is going to have to start. The Archons are kind of on the wrong side of the fight for the initial start of it. But they do find the Lings eventually. The Probes trying to help out with a bit of a surround. The Archons getting the maximum amount of damage possible. The Immortals, with their shields gone and oh, so close to death, are going to have to be juggled like a boss. One already goes down, so not a boss. Maybe like a vice president. I don't know. But that is not going to be necessarily the best hold. I feel like it's still a hold, right? Like, the Immortal Juggle is so good. Plus one's about to finish. And he's got a lot more units. There's the Warp in there. And he also killed 12 drones behind this, with, I'm guessing, a couple of those Adepts that were left off to the side. There are Immortals here. Zealots are coming in. He's going to juggle the Immortals aggressively to get the maximum amount of damage done. And those Zealots eventually catch up to the Roaches and start to slice and dice their way through. That plus one's been done for, I guess, a while now. Only mattering in this engagement, but it is truly mattering as this is the final engagement, I have to guess. A couple Lings finding a couple of critical units, an Immortal and a Sentry go down with a War Prism chases down the units on the left side, and this is a bit of a mistake from Zest to be so aggressive, but it doesn't really matter. It's a very small mistake in the grand scheme of things, because he is winning this game. Ragnarok is down 9 workers, down in upgrades, and now down in army supply. And his army is not very impressive. A couple Archons added into the mix to make sure no Ling surrounds are pesky. Not that they really would be. I mean, there's way too many Zealots for Lings to do a whole lot. A couple force fields, I mean, kind of help out, kind of. A little bit, maybe a little. Sentry's a little bit useless, actually. But that doesn't matter. Still so many power units backing that up. GG. Zest takes game number 1. I can't believe he actually held against that, man. Like, those units were on top of his natural. They depowered 75% of his production. But... Zest is best, man. I don't know. Guys, I have very important news. It's Sarah's birthday. Lord and Savior. I'm getting tired. It's 4 in the morning. Fortunately, the Korean side of these cups don't go as long as the European or North American side of things. Korean cups usually 4 hours. And Europe is like 6+. North America can be 6+ as well. If it was 6+ hours, the sun would be coming up. And that would just make me sad. I don't want to cast until the sun comes up. As much as I love Korean StarCraft. As much as I love Zest. Please no. In the top right of Zen, we have Ragnarok. And in the bottom left, ensuring a pro block of the hatchery, it is Zest with the double probe down to the natural. It is a pretty significant loss of income. I mean, not only is this probe an extra probe not mining, but this probe also has to kind of stick around and wait for the gateway to be popping up. So, better be worth it. It better be worth it. Yeah, it is. I'm pretty sure if you do this, you get the hatch block, like, because no one really wants to go for a 15 hatch, and there's no way to get a faster 16 hatch. I don't think.
Resubscription received. Apparently,
Ragnarok actually does get the hatchery down on the location he wants, though. The probe decides not to go for the pylon. And Ragnarok can actually send a drone prepared to take this third base, but doesn't have to. Thank you, Carl Fishy, for the 8-month resub. What are you all doing up? What are you all doing up? What time zones are you in? What type of degenerate lives do you live? Well, I'm just gonna wait until something interesting happens. How y'all doing? I'd really like to use this like quarantine time to do something really super cool, like, and actually like super discipline myself and do all the things I've always wanted to do. But it's the opposite of what's happening. It is the opposite. Ah, you double chrono the main nexus? Ah. Just watching and learning. Warp gate, not Stargate. This is something Zerg players will notice if this is started immediately or not. It's a 50 gas difference, but it's a pretty important 50 gas difference. So, believe it or not, this has already told him it's not a Stargate. I've not really been paying attention to it in other games, but that can be another reason why you know it's not a Stargate. Technically, it could still be, and it's a mind game. But, yeah. I want to get into painting and stuff again, but I just don't have like the space set up for it quite. And my cats keep knocking down my canvas. So I'm like, oh my god, what if it's a drying canvas? Like, oh, that'd be such a disaster. So we'll see about that. Oh, ZG and NA? Where else would I be? I find it still very odd that some people think I've been living in Korea this entire time. I don't know. "6:30 p.m. I'm eating spaghetti." So that's Australia, right? I mean, that makes sense. Australians get a pass here. 8 a.m. in London. Do you have to ride the tube? Ugh. I feel bad for the people who have to ride the tube. Resident Glaives once again. Roachmorn once again. Ragnarok did a hold on, I'm remembering the wrong game. Ragnarok did an all-in that stopped this from ever happening. I am remembering the wrong game for sure. I was trying to think of a macro game, but that was the Scarlet series. No. Oh, he didn't attack. They didn't have to actually deal with this, so now he has to deal with it. It is the 4-gate, not super all-in. There's going to be macro behind it version. I am totally paying attention to whether or not Ragnarok goes for the all-in again, though. Absolutely. He goes, "Oh, Deps, that's cute," and then just like wha-bams you with a bunch of roaches and lemons. The Deps are here. He has some units on the front line. He has more units coming out now. The Lings want to stop these from being able to actually enter into the mineral line, because that's when they get the maximum amount of damage for multiple reasons. But if they're not there, then hopefully they're shading from so far away they can't get to the mineral line anyways, which is kind of what's happening here. Ragnarok splitting his forces means that he actually loses some units on the left side. He has to take the shade seriously, though, even if it's not close to the mineral line. So he had to split his forces. It loses him a decent chunk of units off the left side. Maybe too many units. A lot of these adepts are very low, though, so I think he's still okay. And he is target firing them down as well as they get very, very low. But the queens have died here. They're finally starting to try and target fire the warp prism, but more queens are going to die as well. The adepts not in the mineral line, so Ragnarok can pull away. He still stopped drones from going down. Ooh, almost spoke too soon there. Okay, pulls from the main base. But now it's a question of how long does this take? I mean, if he only lost 8 drones, that's really not bad, but he's also lost, like, all of his queens. And, okay, he's losing more drones, but he's also just taking forever to actually clean this up. This is not being just one and done, clean up, and I'm going to immediately counterattack, which would scare Zest a lot. Now, this has lasted a very long time. It's taken some pretty damn good trades. Zest is actually winning with this. I know I said it's harassment, and that's not really doing it justice. Hello, that's a mistake. But it is not off those 6 gateways, 8 gateways. It is just 4. I had to actually double check to make sure because it's been doing so much damage. But yeah, it's the 4 gateways. It is a committal, and there is always that moment for Zerg players that are like, okay, are you actually committing to this? Is it 4? Is it 8? Is it 4 more adepts, or is it a robo and a forge back at home? So there's always that moment where they might not be focusing entirely on the defense, but Zest also just was able to screw up Ragnarok enough, man. Like I guess Ragnarok should not have split his forces. He should have just let his third base not mine for a bit longer, and then all these units that died in kind of that clumsy one-sided battle would have been instead all together pouncing on the adepts, which would have looked a lot better. But losing 8 more drones, still not cleaning this up fully and entirely, as the War Prism is alive with adepts in it. I mean, Zest has taken a pretty good lead here. He's got his 3rd Nexus up. He had a probe lead for a little while there. He's getting into Blink. He does not have a forge. Like he does, so he'll start +1 soon. And he'll have enough Immortals to stop any Roach run-bys. Counterattacks, desperate attempts to even up the game, so on and so forth. Spire, though. That's a little bit trickier. Zest does not have many options against Spire, so he has to be wary of it until that Blink is done. And even then, if Blink's done, but he doesn't actually think it's on the way, you just start to snowball. We go back to that Scarlet game versus Trap. But it looks like he is thinking of exactly a Spire, and I'm not... He didn't actually see it, but he might have, again, maybe just the lack of roaches. Maybe the amount of gas geysers he's seen, because he really was truly in every single base with all those adepts running around. Something has told him to be wary of those, because not only is he getting Blink and +1, which is a common follow-up for him, he's also got the cannons. That's, yeah, he knows. 1 cannon won't be enough against a growing number of mutas, but it's a strong start. And now the double Hallucinated Phoenix confirms the Spire as well. So very nicely done. Zest just needs to build up his soccer army. And I think he could even... I mean, he has to be careful not to attack into someone who's trying to attack into him, right? So maybe he doesn't do an attack with +1 finished, but as he slaps down the mutas, it's going to be very tempting, I think, to go for a push, just so the muta count doesn't grow out of control. And the muta's trying to find something to do here. Not committing any more to the mutas. 1's going to go down. 2 probably going to go down. He's trying to focus right down the weak ones, but he's kind of misclicking, I think. You know, I might get 2. 12 probes go down, though, as Zest thinks he's got a handle on it. Doesn't pull the probes away. 13 probes. Not too bad for what was, I think, 2 mutas died? 3 mutas died. That's still pretty good. Because they're kind of done with. He's not committing any more to the mutas. He is done with them. 3 of them got 13 probes, and then the rest can help against a War Prism, or run-bys, or popping shields, or whatever. No, that's pretty good for Ragnarok. Zest, though, is still amassing a good army. He's going to get some plasma shields here, which I actually find very interesting. I'm surprised he gets that as opposed to +2. It usually is in most compositions, +2 and then shields. But I feel especially when we're talking about like Blink Stalkers versus mutas, you talk a lot about that +2. So that when they blink forward, they don't barely not one-shot the mutas, right? But, alright. Either way, the upgrade's not going to be done for this defense. Charge will be done. But against a Baneling army, it just means they die faster, so you gotta be careful about that. This is just slow Banelings. Baneling speed's only halfway done, so Ragnarok, if he waits for Baneling speed, is actually giving Zest a lot of time to scout this and then also continue building units. But unfortunately, Zest is not scouting. He's prepped for defense. He has storms, he has force fields, but he's not actually scouting this. And he's also not warping in anymore. In fact, he's getting a second Stargate. Wait, no, first Stargate. Sorry, he's getting a Stargate. But I'm surprised he's getting a Stargate, because he's seeing that the muta count hasn't grown. His scouting is kind of limited to this one little creep patch. He's going to get completely surrounded here. Both sides having Banelings. He's going to force it off the right side. But the Storms, they need to have a couple more, but unfortunately the Banelings collide into them, and Zest is getting completely surrounded here. He blinks back with the Stalkers while he can. More Stalkers coming from the left side as well. More Storms actually coming from the left side. Actually, so many more Stalkers coming in from the left side. Way more army for Zest, was actually kind of hidden at his third base, prepared for a multi-pronged attack, but not necessarily prepared for a huge surround. But because there's actually so much left over, it's Ragnarok who's forced to retreat. I mean, maybe it's actually better they weren't involved in the fight in the beginning, because then the Banelings didn't have an opportunity to collect everything at once and, you know, get the best splash possible. I mean, he didn't end up defending his fourth base that was torn down there, and maybe he could have if everything was together, if 4 extra Storms were there, but he does take a convincing fight towards the end. He even gets 11 drones here as the Muta is taking too long to clean up these Adepts. They also don't even bother shading because there's too much army, but Zest, he's apparently comfortable with losing that fourth base. I thought maybe he'd use the Stalkers at the very least to kind of continue chasing down these units and see if he could do anything, maybe even clear up the creep. He has an observer right there, right? But he actually stays at home. Very safe play here. And he gets a fleet beacon and then goes into a mothership and then decides that's a terrible idea and cancels it. You're right, sis. That is a terrible idea. Don't do that. What goals do you want to accomplish? I just like want to. As I said, I want to get back into painting, and I want to keep up with like diet and exercise, but it's just not as good of a feeling when you're not at the gym, pumping iron, being swole. I'm surprised by this choice, but it looks like, I mean, he's been planning, I guess, going into the late game air since he first got that Stargate, and I was like, oh, okay, he's going to Stargate. I mean, this apparently was his plan, so he's going to stick with the plan, even though he took, I think, a convincing fight, one that could have led into a tug of war back and forth. He's just going to go into carriers. Advance forward here. Ragnarok actually kind of turtles up himself. He's going to go for an infestation pit. He doesn't remax instantly. Just defending against some very, very minor harassment. Whoa, wait, whoa, 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 what? I didn't even notice. He didn't have roach speed. Oh my god. I mean, I don't know if that changes the fight enough, but I gotta imagine it changes it a little. Speed's very important in RTSs. And in the cases of roaches and ravagers, it's not as scary as, you know, waddling banelings turning into rolling banelings, but it is still scary to have roaches jump on top of your army as opposed to kind of slowly marching up a ramp, right? It's certainly a mistake, that's for sure. This was not some planned timing. No, he made a mistake, and at least he recognized the mistake. Lots of defenses, still some harassment. How did 8 drones go down? I guess DTs, Adepts, whatever were worked in again. But the Muta's still alive, and it's clean up that War Prism. Banelings, nuh-uh. Not today. Oh, guys, why would you do this to me? Ragnarok, do you know if there are Stargates? Oh, he knows. So he got something in the main base and saw a double Stargate being produced. He knows he's going to be facing an air army. That makes sense. He did not think he could go for a follow-up attack. He intentionally did that. He did not want to go for a follow-up attack. He's thinking that it wasn't going to work, and he's probably right about that. But rather also investing into a lot of his late-game technology. It was still a very decently sized ground army, and that's why we saw him kill a Ravager. I'd imagine you want to kill the roaches first, though, so maybe it was a misclick. I think it was a misclick. You don't want to kill Ravagers, you want to kill roaches. Oh, that's only slightly awkward. Doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. What matters a lot more is the Protoss army maxed out with decent upgrades, about to have +2 shields on every part of this army. That's what matters a lot more. These High Templars are looking awfully juicy for the Banelings. I don't know about moving forward like that. That is so dangerous to do because all it takes is like 2 Banelings to kill a High Templar, right? 2 or 3. Oh, the storms on the right side are pretty good, and they morph instantly into an Archon. One more storm available on the backside. The Banelings definitely trying to get to them, and actually do grab it as well, as well as the Sentry. But a lot of very powerful units still left alive. The War Prism does go down, but doesn't matter. Ragnarok realizes he is out of options. Way too much Protoss.